こんにちはです。早速なんですが、今回の動画ではこの表現を取り上げていこうと思います。
So I says, when I come back, and finally I says, I have the answer.
I says, let me tell you what Jesus would do.
はい。で、これ、めちゃくちゃ面白いですよね。で、主語が I なのに、動詞のこの say っていうのが says。ね。say のいわゆる三人称単数の時のS がついた形になっている。これがものすごい面白いところで、こちらの表現ですね、この前の YouTube の動画でも、ニックがこういうふうに言っていました。
これ過去なのに、So I says to him って聞いたことある？
So I said.
So I said to him じゃなくて、So I says to him ちょっとなんか、なんていうの、ジョーク感が入ってるんだけど、
I says to him.
So I says to him, go home. の意味は、俺が言ったのは家に帰ってくださいっていう。
で、今回これニックはこういうふうに言っていますけれども、実際他のネイティブにはどういうふうに聞こえるのかすごい気になるところだったので、今回はオンライン英会話のCamblyを使っていつもお世話になっているアメリカ人の先生にこちらの表現について聞いてみました。で、今回の会話のスクリプトですね、こちら公式 LINE で says というふうに入れていただくとダウンロードできるようになってますので、もし興味がある方はダウンロードしてみてください。はい、それでは早速動画見ていきましょう。どうぞ。
So the question is about the usage of I says, right? So when I was talking with my American friend, he said I says, I says, I says. And I was like, there must be something wrong with the grammar of it because I is definitely not a third person singular pronoun. So usually you'd say like I say or I said probably, but that's doesn't seem to apply here for some reason. So today I wanted to pick your brain about why it is okay to say I says instead of I say, and in what kind of situation it is used, and if it is grammatically correct and stuff like that. So if you could explain that, that would be awesome.
Sure. Now, typically, of course, it's not correct, right? And I even looked this up online and it said that it's just very casual to say I says and things like that. But let me ask you this: what region of the United States was he from?
Oh, he's from California.
Oh, okay, interesting. There are lots of things I've noticed coming out of California when it comes to grammar that I am a bit shocked by. Right. For example, things like have went, and I think I mentioned this in a previous situation with you before. Things like have went instead of have gone, right? Or things like this, I says, right? And you know, this is just how language changes. That beforehand, it used to be, you know, you cannot say this particular word, or you shouldn't say this particular word because it's not grammatically correct, right? Or substandard, but things are starting to change more and more. So if it's coming out of California, it might mean that it's becoming a little bit more popular to say I says. Personally, I haven't heard any of my friends say I says. Yeah, none of my friends and none of my family, nobody like that. So it seems that California is the trend setter, which is a euphemism, I would say, a trend setter for English. And
which part of America are you calling from again?
Well, I am from Tennessee. I'm living in Panama, but I'm from Tennessee. You know, you would think that in the southern part of the United States that there would be more substandard grammar, but I think with all the education that we've gotten, I think it's helped to make sure that students speak more standard English, right? So, yeah. So now let's also talk about historically how it's been used and regionally as well. So if you ever hear this, I've heard it more often in like British TV shows or historical dramas or things like that, where it's more dialectical, based off of the person's education. So if you've ever watched any British historical dramas or fictional dramas like Pride and Prejudice, you might hear more uneducated people say I says. It might sound like, and all I says to me mom, that sort of thing, right? That sort of accent. So it's related to that sort of class in society. If the person is a grammar Nazi and is hell-bent on everybody speaking the correct standard form of English, then it might sound very unnatural and unwanted. But if you're talking to somebody like your friend, it's probably going to be normal for you, right? To hear that.
How does it sound to you personally?
It sounds fine to me to hear that, because people speak in their different ways. But as I said, none of my friends or family have ever said that.
I actually try to think why people say I says instead of I said. And possibly it's because, when you're describing a situation that you've gone through, you are kind of like taking a step back and seeing yourself from the distance.
Right.
So when viewed in a certain light, you in that situation that you've experienced is already a third party for you. And thus the person might have chosen to say says instead of said, possibly.
Yeah, because it's what we call narrating, right? Like, for example, so my brother says to me, blah, 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 and then I say, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So it's just basically narrating. So, so I guess it's easy to jump from say to says.
When describing that situation, yourself is kind of like removed from like actual yourself, like, if that makes sense, like that you were seeing yourself as a different person. It's just my educated guess, but
and then you have the group of people that sometimes as a habit talk in the third person. Will says, something like that. And they're an interesting group of people too, but good to meet you again and see you again, and hope this helps.
はい、ということで今回この先生は I says という表現は非常にカジュアルな響きが、砕けた響きがあるというふうに言っていました。で、実際私でも調べたんですが、やっぱりかなり口語的な響きがあるようで、人によってはですね、ちょっとイギリス英語っぽい雰囲気があるというふうに言っている方も、インターネットで調べるとありました。で、チャット GPT に聞いてみてもですね、非常にcolloquial、口語的な表現だというふうに出ていました。で、実際じゃあこれ皆さんどうですか？聞いたことありますか？使いますか？ぜひぜひ英語学習している方、それからネイティブの方でこのチャンネル見ている方、意見ありましたらコメント欄までぜひぜひ書き込みをお願いいたします。はい、ということで今回は I says という非常に面白い表現についてネイティブの講師の方と一緒にオンライン英会話Camblyを使って話していきました。また次の動画で皆さんお会いしましょう。バイバイ。